Theorizing that primetime audiences were ready for a new time travel series, NBC and creator Donald Bellisario debuted Quantum Leap on March 26, 1989. Starring Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell, the series followed Dr. Sam Beckett for 5 seasons of time-hopping adventures, spawning novels, comics, and a fan base that has clamored for decades for a revival. Now, with Raymond Lee and Caitlin Bassett starring in a new version of the series that dangles just as many new threads as it does old ones, we'll ball the string up and explore the revival and the ways in which Quantum Leap has always entertained and inspired us here on Oh Boy.
Oh boy, it's a Quantum Leap podcast. My name is Nate, and with me is a co-host we can all see and hear. It's Brian Martin.
Hello, everybody! That was for Nate, because I had a really low energy intro on the last one we did, so I thought I was going to really jazz it up this week.
Well, I appreciate that. It'll make things much easier in the editing stage. Oh, man. So, yeah, we're back from Christmas break. How was your holiday, sir?
It was good. Some quality family time in there, inspired by the Leap Home, of course.
Yes.
How was yours? How was your New Year?
Well, honestly, the better holiday, I think, was the New Year, because I binge watched probably the best time travel show on television.
Huh. Not Quantum Leap.
Not Quantum Leap. Paper Girls.
Oh! Good for you.
Have you seen the show?
I've not seen all of it yet. We were talking a little bit before the show and how I have to be very deliberate about the time I spend doing anything. And if I read a comic, that's a show I can't watch, or a video game I can't play. And so, no, I haven't gotten through Paper Girls, and I feel largely responsible for its premature cancellation, but I've read the entire series, and I absolutely loved it.
Well, see, I'm going to have to go to the comics, because I just enjoyed the hell out of that show.
Yeah.
I mean, it just top-tier television. My wife and I watched it in 2 nights.
Wow.
Yeah, like literally the New Year's Eve. It's the first time I've stayed up past midnight for the holiday in years, but it was for watching this television show. Stephanie Folsom brought it to television, and it wasn't until I decided to talk about it tonight that I realized it was canceled.
Oh, jeez.
We assumed a second season was coming. I was all excited about this new show, and yeah.
It was one of those quick cancellations. It was like a week later. The streaming stuff, I just don't get it.
Yeah, I know.
Would Quantum Leap be getting a second season if it were a streaming show? Probably not.
Well, if it was exclusively streaming,
Exclusively
right?
a streaming show, it probably wouldn't. Unless it was exclusively streaming on Peacock, in which they'll be like, hey, give us what you got.
Exactly. Well, I mean, Saved by the Bell didn't make it, right?
I mean, yeah, there you go.
Did it? I don't know.
I
don't
think
even
it
know.
made 2 seasons.
Oh, okay. Well, they got, all right.
So Quantum Leap's tied Saved by the Bell. What is it? Saved by the Bell? Was it the new generation, or was
the
it
next generation?
Was it
class?
just called Saved by the Bell?
I think, honestly,
was it just
I have
called
no idea.
Saved? Because that would have been like, edgy and hip.
That would have been the hip way to go.
Like,
yeah.
like Bel Air.
Have you seen Bel Air?
I have not seen Bel Air. We've gone over this, Nate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't get to watch TV, man.
Oh, okay. For anybody that is looking for a good time travel show, I would still recommend checking out Paper Girls. It was such a good watch. And I guess now I'll have to go back and read Brian K. Vaughan's series, get the rest of the story that way.
It probably reads better as a completed opus. Month to month, as you can imagine, it got a little bit hard to follow sometimes.
Yeah. How time travel worked wasn't 100% clear by the end of the first season, but was so great about it was the interactions between the girls and their future selves.
Right.
It was just so fascinating to basically frame this show around being able to see yourself in the future.
Brian K. Vaughan wrote for Lost for like 1 season, and I think a lot of the lessons he learned on that show, he applied to Paper Girls. Because I see, thematically, Lost and Paper Girls have a lot in common. It's not about the mechanic. It's not about how all of this works. because some of it is meant to be mystical and open to interpretation. It's about the interpersonal relationships and the connections these people make together.
Yeah.
And the problem with Lost was that the show deliberately hung so much of its early identity on all of these mysteries.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Sort of kind of, and even though it was always about the interpersonal relationships too, the hook that got everybody coming back was, what the hell is going on here? In fact, the last line of the second part of the pilot is, guys, where are we? Right? And so it's like the show invites you to place emphasis on all the mysteries. I don't know if I can call it a misstep, because that's what got the show a full run.
Yeah.
But it's definitely what made a certain percentage of the fan base of the show rebel against it at the end.
Right. Well, I never watched Lost, but as far as Paper Girls goes, it was so fascinating to see yourself from this other perspective. It invites an introspective thought of, how do I see myself now? And what did I expect of myself?
Yeah, it's a fun game because...
Well, it's not all that fun if you... Right. It causes you to examine some things. Some of the girls are happy with the way they turned out. Some of them are surprised by things that have happened. And some of them are just utterly depressed with where their lives went. Mm-hmm. And the examination of the process was just so fascinating, to where the time travel war almost sort of took a back seat.
Right.
Again, it was sort of like Quantum Leap in that it seemed more like a drama than a sci-fi series.
Yeah.
And
it's like a teen drama, really.
And a good one. It's a shame that show was canceled.
When I say it's kind of fun, I mean, I think most people of imagination like to think about, if I could go back and tell myself at age 13 one thing, what would it be?
Right.
This story, the show, the comic, kind of inverts that. Right? It's not about going back and seeing yourself as you were. It's about moving forward and seeing how effed up everything became.
Right.
And how much you didn't live up to what you thought you were going to be when you were 13.
Right.
And that's a drama minefield right there. Like, I mean, what a great idea.
The show does seem to go kind of back and forth, though. It is told a lot from the perspective of the Paper Girls, but there's enough emphasis placed on the older characters, too. They're as judgmental of their 12-year-old selves as the kids are of them. Like, look, you don't know me. Like, you can't judge me. You're 12 years old. You know, you don't know half the things that I know now. I'm lamenting the loss of what I feel like was a really great show. Brian K. Vaughan is just prolific. I mean, I was going to read off some of his bibliography, and it's insane. It'd be easier to list the things that he hasn't written.
Most of the comics you loved, and most of the shows you liked but didn't get a second season.
Right.
Brian K. Vaughan is on them, baby.
And yeah, Why the Last Man is one that I read a lot of. That had been in and out of development hell forever in television and movies, and I don't... It got like one season,
made.
Right?
It got a season and got canceled.
Yeah, like immediately.
2 years ago. So it was like that and then Paper Girls.
Yeah.
And the horrible thing is, like, Brian K. Vaughan, like you were saying, prolific, extremely talented. But when you hear him talk, I don't know if you've ever heard Brian.
I don't know that I have.
Talk. Not only does he sound like Ray Romano, but he's like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of cross my fingers and hope the artist pulls it out at the end.
That's a really good Ray Romano. You did a.
It's also a halfway decent Brian K. Vaughan, I think.
That's pretty funny.
He looks like Lex Luthor. It's like Ray Romano played Lex Luthor in a movie.
Yeah.
You got it. That's it.
At any rate, yeah, I digress.
Yeah, we're almost 15 minutes into a podcast about Quantum Leap, which is, surprise, a different time travel show than the one we've been talking about.
A little banter here up at the top of the show, but might as well get into it here. Who accepted the nudge this week, Brian?
The date is April 24th, 1979. Ben has leaped into Jack Armstrong. Get a load of that name. A bodyguard, because of course, Jack Armstrong. Brock McHugelarge. He's a bodyguard for recording superstar Carly Farmer, who is being targeted for death by someone in her immediate circle. Who? We don't know. Ziggy has an idea. Mm-hmm. In the present day, Team Quantum Leap gets aggressive in their search for answers following Ben's admission that he started this whole thing to save Addison.
Yes, to save Addison. From what? We don't know.
And neither does Ben. Surprise,
Right.
surprise. It was a line to get you to come back, and they're like, yeah, we don't know. And again, I think we're going to get a lot more of that this season because of the extensions.
This would have been in the can by the time that announcement was made, though.
Oh, most definitely. So if the show hadn't gotten the 18-episode extension, and we only had 3 episodes or 4 episodes left as of right now, then I bet this episode we just saw might have been a little different.
You think maybe it went through some editing or something?
Maybe Ben would have remembered a little bit more. I don't know.
I guess if you're not in the room, it's hard to know. I can say that I saw the title of this episode, Fellow Travelers, before I actually watched the show, and it got me really excited.
Oh.
Fellow Travelers. I thought we'd be talking about fellow leapers.
There's definitely an implication.
Yeah.
But surprise, it's just the title of a song.
Yes, and I was sorely disappointed by that.
Oh, see, I didn't look at the title, so
Yeah.
I didn't have that expectation coming into it. But even if I had,
Were you sorely disappointed just the same?
even if I had, no, and here's why.
Oh,
Because
all right.
this episode opens, and very quickly, Deborah Ann Wall steps out of a car, and we find out that, oh, hey, this week's special guest is Karen Page herself,
Yes.
Deborah Ann Wall.
Yeah.
And I was
yeah.
like, keep it coming, man. I was very excited to see her again.
Yeah, I like her a lot. I know she was kind of going through some career struggles after that show was canceled, and she actually started this D&D campaign
Yes, yeah.
online.
This is what I love about Deborah Ann Wall. She's like Joe Manganiello in that she's a talented actor who's also a huge nerd and is not afraid to hide it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it when these cats are like, Sam Witwer, being human, he plays Darth Maul in the Clone Wars, like co-wrote a book about D&D with his brother.
Yeah.
I love these guys.
Yeah. Even Henry Cavill, he's, what is it, God of War that he's into? Or what is his thing?
I don't know. I'm having a hard time differentiating his interests and hobbies from the roles he's supposed to play and then doesn't abruptly.
Yeah.
It's really hard to keep all that straight. But Henry
Yeah.
Cavill is a nerd and maybe the finest example of what I call a daywalker. A nerd with all of our strengths and none of our weaknesses when it comes to attractiveness.
Hey, well, speak for yourself. No, I like Deborah Ann Walsh. That was a highlight from an episode that otherwise it really feels like a retread of the formula that wasn't working.
Yeah, the one area in which I feel like this made a slight improvement is that I don't think as much of an emphasis is placed on the present day. And when it is, like, say, Addison's scene with Ian, when Ian explains why he has an inherent distrust of things that are quote-unquote accepted as fact.
Right.
Like, moments like that I really, really liked. It was relevant to the plot in that moment. There was one scene in particular that stood out. I don't think we needed this, and it was Magic's scene with Addison. But I thought that the show tried to make this leap mostly about Ben's leap to varying effect.
Yeah.
It felt very rote, almost like paint by numbers. Because this is not the first time we've had a whodunit situation on Quantum Leap. In fact, this is like the 3rd episode that I can think of where we had like a whodunit style mystery. Maybe 4th?
The Halloween episode was certainly that way.
The Halloween episode and the Bounty Hunter episode were both kind of...
And they actually did a flashback to that Bounty Hunter episode.
They did.
Isn't that weird?
In the original series of Quantum Leap, I can only think of 2 instances where we had flashbacks to previous leaps. One of them was Shock Theater, and I don't know if there were any literal flashbacks in that, or if Sam just adopted personas that he had in the past.
I think the reflections of the characters were there.
And then Mirror Image, speaking
and
of
then
that,
Mirror
was the
Image.
other one where he would see a character and be like, I know who that is. That's Captain Galaxy over there. And you would get that little flash of familiarity.
This wasn't even creative, though. It was just like, hey, since you probably didn't see this episode...
This wasn't him remembering. It was Addison looking at us and being like, hi, folks. Speaking of which, though, speaking of getting the audience up to speed, I don't know whether that's a product of this show still finding its audience and maybe people just joining in for the first time and needing a little bit of context.
Well, welcome aboard if that's the case. Anybody that's picking up now. Take what I say with a grain of salt here, because I am not going to be particularly friendly to this episode.
This episode did begin with a new prologue for the benefit of people who are just finding the show for the first time.
And actually said helping put
Exactly.
right what once went wrong.
It actually uses the line trying to put right what once went wrong. And I was like, oh, there's the old mission statement.
I feel like that one was probably just a recap situation.
Previously on Mannix.
Yeah, right. Last time on Star Trek The Next Generation.
And now, the conclusion. That was always my favorite part. Yeah, we get it. It's the top of the hour. We know there's a whole show coming after this. I don't know. Anyway, audiences have matured.
Have they, though?
I don't know. We could probably talk about that with regards to the differences between a broadcast show and a streaming show. Because Quantum Leap is very much a broadcast show built for a broadcast audience, but it's struggling between the two, I think.
Yeah.
We've talked in the past about how this show pushes against the serialized format of Quantum Leap, right?
Right.
And this week certainly continues that trend.
It almost goes back to that trend. Yeah, Stand By Ben, and then the Halloween episode, we spent practically the whole time with him. I think I was starting to get a little spoiled by this time that was spent with Ben and the characters in his leap. This one feels like we spent a lot of time in 2022 telling us absolutely nothing. Like, we don't know anything more now than we did at the start of that episode, and a good 50% of it was spent trying to figure out parts of the mystery.
Most of it was in the service of delivering one breadcrumb.
Yeah,
one single line that is a breadcrumb for what will come next.
It all amounted to nothing, really. And the thing about it is, I am someone that loves slow burn stories. These people that complained about Marvel Netflix shows, every season has too many episodes, or it's so slow moving, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, I think like WandaVision was a great example of that. Right?
Yes. Oh, I love WandaVision.
It would give
from
you
beginning
just a
to
nugget.
end.
Just a nugget. And it was just enough to get you coming back. Yeah, WandaVision is for me peak of the MCU shows, I think. And
yeah, I'm sorry, I brought it up. So I remember when the Netflix shows were out, people were like, yeah, these are good, but they should be 8 episodes long instead of 10 or 10 instead of 13 or whatever it was. There were so many complaints about things like that. Even a Stranger Things, oh, it's so slow. The term slow is such a lazy and often short-sighted critique.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just so overused by critics. Something slow. Oh, it's slow. No, you're probably just not giving it the time that you need to be giving it.
Is that pace deliberate?
Yes, exactly. If it's deliberate, there's a reason the story is being told that way, and I think you're missing some things. That being said, it doesn't seem to work when you're also telling vignettes. The leaps are short stories, if you will, right, that have beginnings and ends. And to put that together with, like you said, one little breadcrumb to the greater mystery spent half the episode, it becomes a distraction.
Right.
It's not an unraveling. It's instead just kind of in the way when you're trying to finish another story.
Well, I used the word deliberate a second ago, right? And
yeah,
the difference between a streaming show that is ordered for X number of episodes and all of them are going to drop at once versus a broadcast show where that number keeps fluctuating. If a show is successful, if it's not successful, it fluctuates, right? A streaming show can be deliberate in that process. Right. A broadcast show, they're like, okay, we've got 6 episodes to tell our story. Whoa, okay, now we got 8 episodes. Whoa, now we got 12. Now we got 18 episodes to tell this story. And you're trying to tell the same story, but now you got to stretch it out, right? And the question is, does this story have the tensile strength to withstand that stretching? And when the points where it's at its weakest, you get episodes like this, where the writers are like, well, I guess this gives us a chance to have Jen and Janice get together for drinks.
Oh, God.
No, now, all right. I know I didn't want to bring her up, but
it's not even Jen. Jen's not even the biggest part of that. Not to derail you here, but honestly, Jen is not necessarily the issue. I watched this episode live, with actual commercials and whatnot for the first time.
I know, it's a weird experience. In fact, some of these I was like, commercial breaks didn't used to be this long. I could have taken a shower and come back by now, and the show would still be a commercial break.
And there are commercials on the screen while you're watching the show.
Oh yeah, that's always obnoxious.
I was like, what? I did watch it also on the streamer. It wasn't necessarily Jen, but that whole scene was terrible. And to me, when I really thought about it, the dialogue was so uninspired. It feels like the person writing it only knows espionage and military from having seen that in television.
It plays like we fed this bot thousands of hours of John Le Carré novels, and it wrote this screenplay. You know what I mean?
So,
like
it
feels
very
like it was
generic.
written by an AI, with one major exception. And this is why I was like, I didn't want to bring her name up, because I think this is the closest Jen's come to outright sacrilege that was maybe targeting us.
Yes. I think I know where you're going.
Do you know what line I'm talking about?
Talking about Al's attire.
Questionable fashion choices.
Yeah. Or
that's out of line. I'm sorry, Jen. That is out of line.
Yeah, it's kind of it does kind of stab at your fan base a little bit. It's like they mention it as questionable attire rather than, maybe the norm. That was the norm. That was the way people were dressing. We've had this conversation.
Well, it was the future, so you had to have something glowing.
Right.
Like, you purposefully dress someone to stand out, and this is what the future looks like. And it's kind of silly, and we see it as silly now, but I always thought it was just going to be one of those things that they never addressed. And now what they're saying is like, oh, well, he was eccentric in his fashion choices.
You know what it's like? You know what it's like? It's like the Klingon foreheads. It's like the Klingon foreheads moment in Trials and Tribulations on DS9. Where
we just
Worf
don't
is like,
talk about
we don't talk about it. Like that.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. It's like Quantum Leaps. We don't talk about it.
Yeah, except they bring it up.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it was just a comeback because she knows Jen's dad's gambling addiction somehow.
Yeah,
like
right.
I feel like Jen just found out about it herself.
I was like, would you two just kiss? That would have made the scene more interesting.
I don't know. I know what they were trying to do, and they left at the right moment where, like, oh, you're asking all the wrong questions. And it is interesting. The one little nugget is, yes, it's interesting. Why did Ben go to somebody else if they were all supposed to be a big team?
Right. That's the question for you.
And which of these people was he unable to trust and why?
Right. We're back to the 24 model. The 2022 story has really followed a 24 style narrative in that now we've got a traitor or a mole to ferret out, right? And the options for who this mole or traitor might be are extremely limited.
Yeah.
Because unless they're going to introduce that guy who keeps all the dolls in his office and make him like a major supporting character at some point, because, that would be my first guess.
Yeah.
Then it's got to be one of your 4 primary supports in 2022.
Yeah, and who are you willing to... the only one I'm really willing to lose in that regard is...
Well, of course.
But
now it would be weird if it was Jen now, because Jen, having gone to where the hell does she go? Nicaragua or somewhere? Where the hell is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Costa Rica.
When Ziggy populates the list of places she could have gone, she's like, "That's where she went. That's where I would have gone." Belize.
Yes, is that what it was?
I think it's Belize. So she goes to Belize, and now that she's gone and confronted her, I have maybe good news for you. I think in the narrative, Jen's the character who has to figure out who the traitor is and then get murdered by them.
Ooh.
Before she can tell anybody else. That may be her function now, because, again, I'm just following a 24 style narrative here. If somebody's going to figure it out and then get capped, it's going to be Jen.
Yeah.
But as far as who the most likely and the least likely candidate are, I think Magic's probably the most likely.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think the least likely, and yet the one I want to see the most, is Addison.
Right.
Because there's a big question mark there. What did Ben mean? Save her, we can interpret that a number of different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think not being able to fully trust Addison would be the most interesting route for this show to take. The person I think is most safe is Ian. Nobody's going to touch Ian. Yeah. Ian is, to me, the most indispensable part of this team.
That might just be to you. I don't. But I like that character as well. But if they're doing a 24 style narrative, they're not doing it well. And the whole notion then...
Well, there's no torture first.
Well, okay. So
I mean,
they're
hey,
doing...
but next week. Maybe next week. Let me show you some things I learned in Nam, Magic said.
Oh, no, he's not the waterboarding type, remember?
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
She specifically called out the fact that they won't torture her, but Magic has ways of getting her to talk.
Just standing in the room with her. I mean, you're Magic, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Magic, baby.
That's the other thing. Like, she sits down and says, I'm not here to arrest you. I just had some questions. Well, one, aren't you most certainly there to arrest her for breaking into a military compound or facility?
Maybe it's like when I say
secrets.
When I say to my son, look, I just want to sit down and have a conversation.
Right.
And there's definitely a punishment coming.
Right. I mean, she does get hauled off in handcuffs anyway, so I guess she maybe was just lying. And then they paid off her bodyguards. She has bodyguards, too, for some... It was so bizarre.
Well, I mean, bodyguards, they go to the highest bidder, I guess, but I was like, man, those guys flipped really quick.
Yeah, well, we didn't even know they existed. It's so messy. She's got multiple compounds, Remember, she was just living in that house, and her basement was also like a secret hideaway, and then she had another one somewhere else where she was building an imaging chamber, and then she had to move it to Costa Rica or wherever she is now, and she's got bodyguards, but for some reason she's doing this...
Yeah, the suggestion continues to be that she has some sort of altruistic intent. Not that she's a gray character, but that she has some sort of good, righteous mission.
Yeah, Magic says, well, maybe she's on our side. But again, she drugged her mother.
Which Jen does mention in that scene when she offers her a drink.
Right, which brings up family. Like, nothing is so complicated that you would ever need to drug your mom if you're the good guy.
You drugged your mom and your dad was a horrible dresser. Yeah, that'll get her right on your side there, Jan.
Yeah, exactly.
My concern with Janice is that we've made her so much of a mysterious boogeyman that the reality will never gel with all of the little tidbits we've got. The answer to why she has all these compounds or why she has bodyguards, like it'll never be fully justified once we find out what the hell she's doing.
I agree with that.
That's my big concern. Like, we're throwing all these things at it, and when we finally get to the revelation, when everything is finally laid out, it'll be like, yeah, well, why did she need bodyguards? Or why did this? Or why did that? Like, why did she have to operate in the shadows? I really hope I'm wrong, but I just feel like they're throwing so many bones out there that they're never going to be able to get them all.
I think you're right, and it's an unfortunate thing. I think even the fact that she had multiple compounds could be just as likely that they had multiple sets. And they're like, oh, well, she only has to have another one because the old set was disassembled. Something of that nature. Yeah. It just doesn't feel like the character needs any of those things. You were talking about it being a 24 style narrative. They haven't given us any seeds to ferret out any kind of mole.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that would throw any suspicion on any of those characters if one of them is a mole.
The very first season of 24, and again, the first season of 24 was another situation where they're kind of flying by the seat of their pants. And when you watch it, you can tell, okay, so they planned for 13 episodes, and then they got extended, and then they had the back end of the story to kind of tell, because they are kind of two separate narratives. Okay. They effectively wrap up the first 12 hours at the end of that 12th episode, and then transfer the action to another group of malcontents to carry out the remainder of the season. And it works pretty well in season 1 of 24. But the second to last episode of that season, we're sitting there watching the second to last episode, you get to the end of it, the clock ticks to 11 p.m. You got 1 hour left, and then the ad for next week comes on. Next week, the explosive answer to the question, who is betraying Jack Bauer? And I was like, wait, is somebody betraying him? Because the show hadn't necessarily laid a lot of groundwork for that up to that point.
Okay.
And I was like, wait, there's a traitor now? And over the course of the next week, I kind of went back over things in my head, and I could narrow it down to one incident that happened around 7 o'clock p.m. in that season that didn't have an explanation. And I was like, oh, well, maybe that's who it is. But again, it was something that seemed to be created late stage. Right?
Okay.
It's like the very last 5 episode stretch of this season.
So you're saying that something could still come up?
Yes.
And we could see one of these characters take a left turn that we weren't expecting.
I'm saying maybe you got to hedge your bets when you don't know how many episodes you've got. And again, it goes back to the whole broadcast versus streaming and the certainty that comes, like, we were talking about Paper Girls.
Mm-hmm.
You guys got one season, and then we canceled you. But you got that whole season. Now, broadcast, it's like, maybe you got a season, maybe you don't. Let's see what you got. We'll tell you in 4 months.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, we give you 3 more episodes. How's another 5 sound? And now you got a second season. So I think that's why a lot of broadcast shows feel so uneven early on, or it takes so much time to find their footing, right? Because it's a thing that doesn't happen with a lot of prestige dramas, because networks like HBO and AMC will throw their weight behind a show and then decide to cancel it later on. It's not a matter of, do I extend this show for a full season or not? The seasons are what they are.
Right. Right. Okay, so we can be apologetic about some of those things, I suppose, but
I mean, it doesn't make for good television in the interim.
Yeah, I was about to say, it doesn't make for a good watch. You know, it makes it just kind of irritating. And I keep coming back to this word distracting. Just as I would get into the storyline with Carly Farmer, they'd pull me back to a meaningless nothing conversation in 2022. Yep. And while I agree that the conversation between Addison and Magic seemed a little inane or superfluous, it did illustrate to me that the other conversations Addison had had with Jen did not necessarily need to be had. And it was like I was saying before, most of the scenes that Jen is in could be served by another character. And it's slightly different, but she's getting the same kind of support network from Magic in this as she did Jen in a prior episode. And again, you could see Magic show up on that island and sit down next to Janice and do that scene.
Oh, sure.
You know?
Sure. I really do think that the writers see in Jen the sort of character that Ming-Na Wen from Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is known for playing, right? And they're like, we've got our Ming-Na Wen over here. It's very much cut from the same cloth. But I don't know anybody else who can do Ming-Na Wen.
And we don't need that. This show doesn't
need an enforcer.
No. Right. As uninterested as I was in the story, it was almost insufferable to sit through. I do like Quantum Leap, you guys. I'm sorry.
Well, all right,
but
so
this episode just didn't do. And then, like I said, it basically distracted me from what I wanted to watch, which was this other Leap story. And Deborah Ann Wall is really the best thing that came out of this.
Oh,
because even that storyline suffers from lack of time, because we start going down a path to a resolution. And of course, it's supposed to be the red herring, but we only have Addison to come and tell us that.
Right.
You know,
right.
It's like Addison goes and finds out. Addison comes back and tells us this. Ben does a little more researching. Addison comes back and says, nope, it's this. And so that story also, I felt like, seemed a little disjointed. Again, maybe it had something to do with the way that I was viewing it with commercials and network. I don't know. It felt like the boxing episode, but worse. Remember, it wasn't the boxing episode, the one where they went to her house. It's like, I was kind of into this boxing thing, but kept getting interrupted by this dumb investigation that's like cut from the same cloth as every other NBC network show. It just feels like it fell back into that trap this week.
Yeah.
And I thought we'd grown out of this. Feels a little bit like a regression to me.
Yeah, I can see that. And I felt largely the same way about the Leap story. There were a couple things I really did like.
Yeah, okay. Feed me.
Other than Deborah Ann Wall, who, yes, I completely agree, she's the best thing in the episode. Really the best thing in any room she's in, probably. Seems like a delightful person. One of the things I really loved was that the Leap opens with paparazzi flashes and Ben's kind of disoriented. The intro kind of goes very quickly from pulling up to a theater, limos, into the theater, and Ben is sitting there in the empty auditorium listening to the sound check, and Addison shows up to talk with him about what he's there to do, and turns out he's there to save Carly, and she dies during the sound check, which is happening right now.
Right.
I thought that was great. Like, the urgency there, I was like, oh, shit, like, I better get the fuck up there,
Yeah, right. They were both caught up in their own story and their conversation about their relationship and what he had done to her instead of being, mindful of what was, like, right in front of them at that time.
Yes, yeah.
That was good. And also, at the very beginning when he leaps in, and that he's less disoriented than he has been in the past.
Yes. Yeah.
He immediately knew this person is approaching this other person and I'm between them. I guess I'm supposed to be stopping this guy from approaching this woman,
Right.
Like,
yeah. He kind of
almost
immediately
he played the role of a bodyguard.
Like, situationally, it's like, oh, that's what I'm doing. I think a similar thing is happening in next week's episode, even though he's probably a little bit more reluctant about it.
Right.
But we'll get to that. I really did like the interactions between Carly and Ben. There was a moment that was very Sam Beckett-y when Carly goes in for a kiss and Ben turns away and he says things like, I'm sure I would be interested in that, but you've just experienced so much trauma that it's not the right time. Like, he plays it off so well. And I thought the song she sang with her sister at the end was kind of nice. It had a real first aid kit kind of vibe to it. I really did enjoy that. And I thought it was sweet that Ben and Addison got a chance to just sit there and listen to them sing.
Right.
And then Ben leaps out in the middle of that.
I like it when he is second guessing Addison, often giving people the benefit of the doubt in the same way that Sam would. The difference is that Sam had Ziggy as a foil, right? Ziggy would say, you're here to do this. And Sam would often go with his gut over the 82% chance that he was supposed to be doing this.
Yes.
Because the computer had it wrong.
I'm dealing with too many data limiting factors.
Ben is very good at that same thing. He's got Addison in his ear saying, tell her, no, you're not invited to this party. In this particular episode, the sister's at the door. And
according to Ziggy, the sister is the one who kills Carly.
Exactly, right. And he's going with his gut. He's reading people, getting a sense for how people feel and what their motivations must be. And can I trust this person? I feel like I can trust this person. Which I guess would be interesting if you take that into consideration with the 2022 storyline where he evidently didn't feel like there were people on his own team he could trust.
Yeah.
If he's got a good sense for these types of things, and maybe there really is a mole. I didn't
but he also
go back in that direction, but
he also doesn't do a very good job of ferreting it out in 1979 either, because as the story progresses, someone very much stands out as the most likely suspect. And that is Trevor, who is, I guess, Carly's manager / songwriter. Got a songwriting partner. And he has been fabricating threatening letters from Carly's sister Jamie over the years to deliberately keep the two of them separated.
Right.
So he thus becomes the most likely candidate to have lured Jamie into this situation to subsequently frame her for Carly's murder.
Right.
And Ben buys into it wholeheartedly. And then we later find out that, no, it's not him. It's actually somebody else.
Right.
And did you know who it was?
I wouldn't say that I was surprised.
I knew who it was. In fact, I wrote in my notes, as soon as we determined, one of them is wrong, I said, my money is on the catty blonde. And it totally was the catty blonde, who in the very
who
first
else
scene
was there, Yeah, that's the thing.
You don't have a lot of people to choose from, and let me assure you that Loretta, the catty blonde, is barely a person to choose from. She's got like 2 lines of dialogue spread across 2 scenes. She's really catty in both of them. One of them towards Jamie, and I was like, okay, well, it's obviously her.
Yeah.
She's
if
the
it's
one
not
white
him,
girl.
Then who else is there? Yeah.
She's the one white girl in the backup singers. So, obviously, if there's somebody here who thinks that she should have Carly's place, it's probably the
catty blonde.
It's probably the mean girl.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, it was.
Yeah. That character felt like the first draft of this script didn't have her in it. It felt like the first draft of this script probably was just this story about a manager, songwriter, that came in between 2 sisters and then decided to off one of them in order to make the money. Yeah. And then they were like, well, we've telegraphed it and there's no red herring anywhere. That's the way it feels.
I'd go a little bit farther and say they added the death mystery in completely, because this is a plot that old Quantum Leap would not have tolerated. Like an episode of original Quantum Leap, there would not have been a murder mystery to solve. It just would have been abusive manager, singer, and her ex-junkie sister. That would have been the extent of the story. And it would have been about the personal relationships among all of those characters.
I think they did that one in the original series.
They did.
The one where he's a rock singer.
Glitter Rock, right?
Glitter Rock, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, they did, yeah.
I feel like you're 100% right on that. I mean, it's not that they haven't done murder mysteries. They did do a murder mystery.
33% of our season has been murder mysteries, or something to that effect so far.
Well, I mean, in the original series, he at least had the one where he was a Humphrey Bogart lookalike.
Oh, that was great.
Where
that was great.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. It feels like they didn't give themselves enough time to do a murder mystery.
The seeds you can plant, given 25 to 30 minutes of television. You know, I can complain about Loretta's lack of characterization earlier in the episode, but where would you have done more of that? I can tell you where you could have done more of that. And that would have been during the scenes where you were off on a beach with Jen and Janice. But
well, the beach scene, just to go back to that for 1 second, the commercial break is right at a point where they say, well, you were doing really great until you asked that question, when you're not asking the question that you should be asking. And she says, which is? And then that's the commercial break. And you know that conversation kept going, but it's all that that's all that they gave us. And then when we come back to it, the conversation is in a completely different place. It's basically just sort of the yada, yada, yada from Seinfeld.
Oh my God, you're right.
It's like, oh, meanwhile... You know, like, clearly they continued to have the conversation. What the did they talk about the whole time?
It's one of those things that's used dramatically that is exclusively for the audience, but makes no sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
Right? It serves only the audience, but like if you tried to apply any sort of, I don't know, conversational physics to it, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, yeah. It's just a cutaway, like a sledgehammer at the end of a scene. You know, like, oh, bum, bum, bum. And whatever. But
do you think she was like, that's a really good question, I guess is what she said next.
It's like, oh, good point. Who do you think it is? It seems like she should have come away from Belize with a lot more information.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress once again.
We might get more info. I mean, we'll certainly get a little bit more info next week. We might get one nugget of info next week.
So earlier in the season, I kind of had this notion that maybe they should frame this show a little more like Burn Notice or like the X-Files mythology episodes. And I really feel like this is a good example of why. I don't know if it would work. I'm just theorizing, you know, like maybe you do a mythology episode where it's 99% the mystery and Ben has to hit a home run in the game, you know?
Sure.
I mean, Sam was literally getting a cat out of a tree in one of his leaps. It was like a half episode leap or whatever. Each story could be put on hold for the other one. And maybe you could tell this kind of story by delegating entire episodes to furthering that mystery. And then step away from it for a while. Like X-Files was very good about doing Monster of the Week. And then every 2 months or so, you'd get one that had the smoking man in it.
Yeah.
So if you did something like that, maybe, and you could drop some of these characters from series regular to recurring.
Yeah.
The way Janice is. We don't need to see Jen every week. We don't need to see Magic every week.
There are weeks we don't. The show has already proven this, right? Like Magic wasn't in episode 8.
Yeah, exactly. That seems like it could work.
I think it would require a heavier commitment to serialization and I don't want to say rejection because that's a harsh word for it, but certainly more of a reluctance towards the streaming audience, right? And I think this is really trying to toe a line, and justifiably so, because evidently the streaming numbers are very good for this show. The broadcast numbers are good. it's kind of got its foot in both audiences, right? Like one foot in each audience. And I don't know how well a completely serialized show plays with a streaming crowd that's binge watching something now. You know what I mean? Like a show like this, where you're looking for that next clue, that next connective thing. I think that if this were just a week-to-week serialized show, I think that approach is probably the best approach for it. Whether it's the network or the showrunner's reluctance, I just feel like there's definitely, it feels like the show is trying to toe a line. Like, deliberately.
Yeah.
And,
but I mean, there are already episodes where they don't do anything with the evil leapers, or they don't do anything with the Janice storyline, or you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like they're already kind of
doing
that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they need to pick a camp, but I mean, I guess you're making a good point that if it's working on network and it's working for their fledgling streamer, then kudos to them. But I don't think
there would be an incentive to change the approach. Not that I'm disagreeing with you at all, because I think that is really probably the best way to go about a show like this, but it kind of goes back to the root of what is the issue, quote unquote, with this show, for what it's worth. And by issue, I think you and I are talking about what is it that separates this from the original Quantum Leap? Why is this show not meeting the potential of that? And it's really...
That's how it started, but I think now I recognize that this is not trying to be Quantum Leap. I think it legitimately doesn't work for a viewing experience.
Yeah.
Like, it's not necessarily that, oh, why isn't it like my old show? It's more like, this was legitimately frustrating to watch.
But I think the roots are the same, right? Like, I think the roots are the same in that New Quantum Leap is about the characters in Project Quantum Leap. Old Quantum Leap is about the characters Sam meets. That exemplifies the difference between these two shows and why this new one's frustrating to watch at times. Yeah. It's that, there's this constant tug of war where the show is saying, here's some new characters for you to care about, but actually what you should be interested in is way over here. And it becomes very, very difficult to ascertain where the A plot and the B plots are, right? Like, which one of these is your A plot and which one is your B plot?
Right. I mean, it sounds like we're kind of rehashing the conversations we had in episodes 1, 2, 3 of our podcast.
And that's the thing. I mean, like you say, it kind of feels like a step backward. I think that's why we're kind of talking like this now, is because this one did feel like those earlier episodes.
Just like the earlier episodes, they also did try to weave in some connective tissue in that they've given a relationship between Jack Armstrong and Carly Farmer having a very similar conflict that Addison and Ben have over trust and giving the potential victim agency. So you need to let Carly know that she's in danger because you didn't let me know that I'm in danger. So
you've got to trust her enough to protect herself. I did like that a lot. They do try to link the conflicts in a way that becomes thematic. Like in this particular episode, the theme is trust and teamwork. I see that they're trying to do that, and in some ways it works. I'm glad that they're at least making that effort. I feel like in a greater story, we would have almost experienced the substance abuse problems that the sister was having. Right. Yeah. Where here we just talk about them. We don't actually see any of it. And I know you've got restrictions and whatnot on a TV show, but this world of 1979 in this episode not feeling terribly fleshed out, there are only 2 locations where this episode takes place.
Right.
The theater and the Drake Hotel.
Right.
Which immediately I thought of...
They stamped it, didn't they? Those damn Gideons.
So did I.
They stamped it, didn't they?
Those damn Gideons.
Yeah, that's the only 2 settings we have in this whole episode, as far as 1979 is concerned. So we've got a hotel room and then a stage. And it could be anywhere. It could be any time. The year, the place, they don't really matter that much. And I think it's cool that they keep getting these one-off performers that are so good. Deborah Ann Moll does a great job with what she's got. But I do think there is so much potential there for more, especially, like you were saying, with Jamie, to add to that drama. And if we even just took out the murder mystery aspect.
Yeah.
Think of how much more that gives the guy who played Trevor to work with. And the girl who played Jamie.
Yeah,
Jamie
you're so right.
With. All of a sudden, you've ratcheted up the drama here. And you give all of them a chance to have a moment in here. Like the moment where Carly is sort of defiantly telling Ben, all right, I'm not going to go for a walk, but we are going out. She gets this sort of emotional moment in there that the other characters don't necessarily get. Jamie's just kind of back and everything's okay, and here we go. We're off to the races.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. We didn't need there to be a mystery about who the killer was. I mean, it's basically glitter rock.
As I travel in space and time, I want to stay, I want to go. You see my face, but it's not mine. But you can see.
Lead with your characters. I guess that would be the one bit of advice that I would give this show. Lead with your characters, not with your
mystery boxes.
Yeah. Don't lead with a mystery box. Quantum Leap's not a mystery box show. Even though you can have your mystery box, I'm allowing you to have your mystery box. Just maybe don't dip in every week.
There's one thing I do want to bring up too, because they mentioned it again. Can you explain to me why Ben has to build up momentum?
I mentioned that. I noted that, yeah.
To get to the future. I mean, they've said this multiple times, but it's not like he's traveling fast.
I can't picture the
I don't
model.
understand. Yeah. It's that golden triangle with the helix in it, but
right.
Like it doesn't, they're not explaining clearly what that means.
Right.
That he's building up momentum. Well, he's just sitting there in a theater.
Right.
It's the same thing as like trying to explain to my son that yes, the earth is spinning even though you can't feel it.
Right. It would be like, again, if he was going to the past, then like some point later, and then farther into the past, and then back into the future, and then past to future, and that gulf was getting maybe wider, leap to leap. Like, maybe I could at least kind of headcanon this into some sort of understandable thing, but I need you to show me with string. I need you to show me with string. That's what I need.
Yeah, something simple, like some kind of simple, momentum is like slingshot around the sun in a bird of prey.
Maybe if the leaps got shorter and shorter. Like, what if he had saved Carly when the scaffolding fell this week and then immediately leaped to a different leap? What if he got to the point where he was only in each situation for like 1 minute? I don't know. I don't know how to represent this. What they're explaining to us.
What if they just didn't use the word momentum?
Right. I guess that would be the best thing.
The whole idea to the show, both shows, was that they're lost in time.
Right.
They don't control where they're going, and they don't know what situation they're going to be in each week.
They don't control it until they do.
Right.
And so, is Ben controlling his leaps? The same way Sam did.
I'm presuming in my head canon that he is. I'm assuming there's a similar resolution at the end. But they at Project Quantum Leap continue to say that he has a trajectory and that he has a goal, that he's pinpointing a place that he's going to. But there's nothing in the string theory, as I understand Quantum Leap to work, that would suggest he has A, any control over it, or B, if he had control, he couldn't just go straight there.
Right.
Why does he have to build up momentum? If there's anybody out there that has a way to explain this,
Sam didn't have to build momentum to get to Beth. Right? He just leaped to Beth.
He just went there.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you and I, we just watched The Leap Home Parts 1 and 2.
Right.
And if anything, even when it's depressing, it's uplifting. Right?
Right.
Even when you have the heavy emotion of the loss of the photographer, she dies. At the end, there's still this uplifted moment. The emotion is uplifting. Like, the show is telling you things can be okay. Yeah,
you don't usually end an episode of Quantum Leap on a downer.
Right.
Almost never.
Almost never, because the whole point is to make things better. His whole mission statement is to change things for the better. And I missed that in this show. And I feel like the episode, What a Disaster.
Yes.
Was a good example of...
In the end, on What a Disaster, Ben didn't save the family unit.
Right.
He just fixed it as much as he could.
He fixed it as much as he could, and then the kid went on to save countless lives with his redesigning of buildings to be sustainable during earthquakes.
Right, yeah.
I, again, understand that this show is not that show, but I do kind of miss just the good-natured effort that the character is putting in to make things better.
The optimism. I could say I miss optimism a lot in our shows today.
Yeah, in a lot of shows, that's right. Superman and Lois was a good example of, like, they finally got Superman right.
Right.
A symbol of hope, you know, an uplifting character.
People are
some
very
kind of an
quick
example.
to believe. People are very quick to believe that, oh, Superman's boring. It's like, no, he's not boring. Like, everything doesn't have to be depressing.
Yeah, if he's done right. And there's a void there, too, for this type of character. Like in our stark reality that we've talked about before with our political parties and the tribal camps that we're all in, when Picard was coming back, I thought, what better character to bring back to the television landscape now than Jean-Luc Picard, a man of principle and leadership and example.
An inspiration.
An inspirational character.
I said before that show came out, and I said it on an episode of the Poprika podcast back before the show aired, I said, I don't think Jean-Luc Picard knows how much is riding on him right now. But I really hope he does.
Yeah, and turns out he didn't.
He didn't, no. That's a great example of what I'm talking about, though. Because it's like you leaned into this sort of moody, pessimistic kind of perspective.
Dystopian.
You turn Starfleet into kind of the villain.
Yeah, that show is easily the show I hate the most.
because you're bringing so much in, and you're like, whoa, what happened? You know?
Yeah. And in the context of this conversation, Quantum Leap has a very similar opportunity to lead by example and put something good out there.
Yeah.
And instead, we've got one this is not a depressing show by any stretch.
Oh, no.
I don't mean to put that on it.
But it's got an edge.
It's got an edge, and it's got a mystery, and it's got
subversive characters and
something's nefarious is happening.
Yes, there's a nefarious undercurrent through it. Exactly.
And it's not just the bad guy getting their comeuppance each week.
It can't just be good things happening to people.
Yeah,
right?
like it can't just be a good guy out there. Even though
folks, that era of television is over. The good guy just doing good things for the hell of it era of TV is over.
Yeah, feels like it. Even though Raymond Lee's Ben Song is a very likable character, very capable of telling that kind of story.
And getting better week to week. I think like he has been, and Addison too, honestly. The two of them have grown on me in ways that I didn't anticipate given the pilot.
Yeah.
Like I'm invested in those two right now.
Yeah. I really like Raymond Lee as Ben. Like you're always rooting for him. And he really does portray a character that has his heart in the right place all the time.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing that Sam always did. You can feel that they have their heart in the right place. And the only other note I have here is that the hand link is back.
The hand link, yeah. And the other thing, speaking of the hand link, is that Addison had a moment where she faded in this week.
Yeah, saw that too.
And there was a noise. There was a noise and a fade in, and I was like, you kind of did it. All right.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting enough.
Give her a thing. Giving her a visual way to enter and exit a scene. An auditory and a visual way to enter and exit a scene is critical. And they finally did it. So I was like, okay,
they did it.
Good for them.
Yeah. I don't know why they went through all the effort to get her that new old hand link that did all the screaming and then it's just not there anymore. And she's got her little saucer back.
Yeah. Oh, well.
It's just kind of weird. I don't know why they did that. But that was the last note I have. I feel like we kind of ran long on... Maybe I'll cut down some of the talking on the Paper Girls.
We always do. We always do. I think it's good.
But anyway, next week, he's a doctor.
Yeah, gonna deliver a baby. Mazel tov.
Yeah.
All right. Well, folks, thanks for listening. When in cyberspace, be sure to reach out to us. We got an email address now, baby. You can contact us at this email address. We're at OhBoyQLPod@gmail.com. That's OOH. Boy, as in boy, oh boy.
Oh boy.
And then QLPod@gmail.com. You can email us there with any thoughts, observations, hate mail. At this point, I'll take any of it. There is a point at which we will not allow hate mail anymore. But, I mean, for now, sure, bring it on.
We'll read it on the air.
Also, your name will be known. Also, be sure to listen to other podcasts on the Poprika Podcast Network. Currently, we're going through a whole month of reviews of the MCU films. Our illustrious Overlord Seed has compiled lists from, I want to say, about 30 Poprikans to aggregate them and figure out a definitive ranking of the MCU films. And we're going from worst to best. We're about 3 days in right now. We'll probably be about halfway through once this is in your ears. But give those reviews a listen. If you want to find mine, it's The Incredible Hulk. They're at dead last.
Oh.
30. I agree. I don't think The Incredible Hulk is the worst MCU movie.
Yeah.
There's at least two worse movies in the MCU.
Dark World.
That's it. Yep.
And I think that's the worst one.
Yeah. Well, Dark World clocked in at number 29.
And then Thor 1, too.
Thor 1's pretty low. That should be pretty low. Anyway, folks.
Yeah. Let's...
We could start another podcast right now. Monday morning quarterbacking the Poprika rankings for the MCU movies, but we'll spare you. Until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Nate.
And we'll be here in the waiting room.